Let's go to Verdence CEO Leo Kelly. What do you think it means? Because this, again, it takes us up to about half of the amount of goods that we import into this country every year just from China that will now have tariffs on them. But the administration starting out with 10% tariffs going to 25% at the end of the year. So the impact will be much smaller before the midterm elections. What do you say?
Well, I think this is the classic Trump negotiating tactic where you have boundaries on either side of a point, and he's going to try to push those boundaries further out in his favor so that when there's a compromise in the middle, it's more favorable to the U.S. This is the strategy that's happened over and over and over again. I think what's important here is to keep in mind that this is 10% of a large number. And this is a game where China's strengths historically are going to put them at a disadvantage. So when you have a massive trade surplus, when you do have tariffs, when you're being restrictive on business coming into your country, that helps you in your growth phase. But now in their maturity phase, that tends to have a problematic effect on their negotiating ability. And let's not forget, they have been pegged to the dollar. Now, why that's starting to release, it's going to take time. And so China's in a very precarious situation. I think we know it. I think this is a classic negotiating tactic. I think the main point here is for everybody to remain calm and keep in mind a long-term view on the markets.
But in the short run, Lindsay, we really need to see a deal get done with Canada, and there's kind of a loose deadline this week. We have negotiations still underway with the Canadian piece of NAFTA. It really has to get sealed essentially by the end of this month in order to get it in front of Mexico before the current president, Peña Nieto, leaves.
Right, and that will be a huge benefit to the market. I think the market will receive that well. But Leo, I would just ask you, how do you invest in this market right now when we don't really know where things are going? And if this is a negotiating tactic, when does the game end?
Well, I think the way you invest in this market is how you always invest in the market, and that is take a long-term view and look for fundamental valuations that make sense. To be fair, our concerns are not the tariffs. They're the Fed raising interest rates in a more aggressive posture as wages start to improve. Our concerns are high valuations in pockets of the market. And so if you look back in time, there's always something in front of the market that's going to cause concern and have folks thinking, this is the moment where the 10-year bull market comes to an end. I think you have to stay calm, look for value. So right now there's plenty of opportunity in the market, but there's also some overvaluation in the market you have to be aware of. And I would add one other point. Let's not forget, for every tariff dollar that's put into the economy, and we hear these stories about certain industries or businesses that have these challenges because of the tariffs. Remember, there's another group of businesses that benefit from those tariffs.